Our fire break installation here in Minnesota is usually late September and early October is when we're putting our fire breaks in. And while we use a tractor with a very heavy duty mower, we use a lot of bush hog mowers that are about 4 or 5 feet in diameter. And right here is a typical break line. So this is where the break was. You can see all the rocks in the background. And as we talked before, the reason we still have native prairie in Minnesota is either it was too wet or too rocky. And here at Lac qui Parle unit, rocks. So I always tell people when our crew goes out to mow fire breaks, we're mowing more rocks than we are grass, putting them in. So it's a pretty violent experience, but we can get a few breaks done in a day. Costs, I mean, you have the cost of the tractor operator, the tractor fuel, and then the mower, and then all those extra mower blades. In dry falls, we'll sometimes defer because we could hit a rock, spark instead of fire. So when we get into dry conditions, we'll carry extra water with us and be real careful. I'm lucky we have an experienced crew. They're good tractor operators. They've been here a long time, so they have mowed these breaks many times. But something I think every prescribed burn manager can appreciate, there are some years we'll put in a fire break on the same location 3-4 years in a row because we didn't get the burn done. We'll try again, didn't get the burn done. We'll try again. Finally, the crew will come back big and saying, please get the burn done next year. We're hitting so many rocks, but we always probably put in twice as many fire breaks as we can actual burns, and that really gives us flexibility based on wind direction, based on site conditions. So if it's too wet, too windy on this site, then we'll go out and we'll move somewhere else. Then during the winter, we do a lot of prescribed burn plan writing, making sure our plans are up to date, going over smoke management, wind directions, contingency planning, making sure our plans are current and correct. And then we send them in, they're reviewed by our forestry division, and they look them over, make sure things are correct, and then they send them back to us. And that always happens during the winter. Then in the springtime, it's our annual fire refresher training. Here at Lac qui Parle, we always walk around, get our equipment ready, make sure it's working, then we get everybody together and we do an equipment walk around. Everybody tests it out, make sure they know remember how to run the pumps and hoses and reels. To me, that's kind of an important day because it gets us in the mind frame of prescribed burning and prescribed fire management. And when we start burning, normally we start on our easy sites. That way we're safe sites. We can make sure our equipment's working, kind of get our burn legs underneath us, and then as the season goes on, we start to build complexity. Where we're standing here today was a 540-acre burn. We have exposure for miles, meaning if the fire were to get away, it's going to go for miles, and it's going to drop down into this cattail slough to my right, and I'd be calling in for air support. So the risk of escape here is very high. So on this burn, we had 18 people. We came together, again, this is a Chippewa Prairie, it's a shared ownership. Nature Conservancy owns some, wildlife owns the other half, if you will, of the prairie. We worked together, we had 18 people. So on this typical line here, based on the wind direction for the wildlife crew, we would have a tractor that would have a water tank on the back that would lay down a wet line. So he's putting water on the ground. And then we have our ignition operator carrying the drip torch, and he's going to light right off that water line. On this site, we were able to get pickup trucks on it, so then we would have a pickup truck following it out with a person with the hose on the back, followed up by 4 ATVs. This fire here, 540 acres, we had it burnt in 2 hours, and it was a real aggressive stripping technique by design. 3 miles to the north is the town of Appleton, Minnesota, about 5,000 people. We want to burn with a south wind, which is, if you will, blowing smoke towards town, but that's where our security was its agricultural fields to the north. If we were to burn with a northwest wind, if it would get away from us, that fire is going to go 5 miles on grass, and we'd have our hands full on contingency, building sites to protect. So we're always going to kind of give us our advantage, take advantage of terrain features, agricultural land. The fire ain't going to go into it. But smoke management, again, in the future, that's what I work on any fire, risk of escape and then smoke management. But here, we secured our lines to the north, and then we had 3 people on ATV's interior stripping it out, building up heat, getting that smoke column high into the sky, up over town, and it worked perfectly. And from ignition 2 hours later, the fire was out, all smokes were out. And I mean, it went extremely well, but that was due to advanced planning, and that just doesn't happen by accident. Where the risk of escape is minimal or a small unit, we'll just mow it. We try to mow as short as they can go, you know, again, taking rocks into consideration, but it's 4 to 6 inches. They're really trying to get that blade down. We'll mow it about at a minimum 15 feet wide. And again, if it's on a site that's very secure, we will just leave the material lay. On a site like Chippewa, again, the preferred method, put them in the fall, then we'll come out here with a rake. Actually, you know, if you will, rake it up, get the material off to the side. The more prep work you can do ahead of time, getting in good breaks, thinking them through, how you're going to tie them in, straight lines versus irregular contours, that all pays off on the day of the burn. I can't stress that enough. The more you can do on work, making a very secure fire break pays off huge when it comes to the day of the burn.